afternoon, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. Welcome to a glitch in the Matrix, where every time we have a beautiful little glitch, or we become the glitch, or both. Okay, it is so good to have you guys here. I have a fantastic show for us today. We're going to be talking about Spearfinger and legends of Cherokee lore. Okay, and are these legends and lore mythological creatures? Are they real, or did they exist one time, or do they exist today? I might have had some personal experience with at least one or two of these. Okay, so we're going to talk about that today, and by we I mean Dennis Carroll and I. Dr. Dennis Carroll is here in the studio today once again, and we have a fantastic show for you guys. Also, he has a major seminar tonight on the Nephilim, and so we're going to talk about that as well. Okay, if you guys would like to follow along with all of my shows, I have a website that's thecryptidhuntress.com, where you can find all of my shows over there and all the events I'm going to be at, including the Georgia Bigfoot Conference. It is official. I am going to be speaking there along with Ron Moorhead, Brooks Agnew, who's a buddy of mine who I met at the Journey to Truth Conference last year, and Matthew Delph, the badass monster hunter, who's a good friend of mine. We're all going to be there. There's going to be a lot of other people there as well. But y'all come see me. That's up in Dillard, Georgia. And I believe that's May 15th and 16th, I think. It's that weekend, Friday and Saturday. It's a 2-day event. So you guys please come and see me there. It's also Bigfoot country up there, just so you know. Okay. So I hope to see y'all there. And also, I want to thank all of my channel members. Wow, it has been amazing. I have an outpouring of support here with all the channel members. If you guys would like to become a member of the Cryptid Hunters channel, I call it the Hunt Club. I put exclusive content out there, and you can do that by clicking the join button on my YouTube channel. It's for a low price, and it's a really fun community. I'm going to be posting exclusive content there, mostly in regards to the spiritual side of stuff. Okay, but we might add some things here and there too. Okay. Oh, also, let's see. I also have a Patreon. Shout out to all my Patreon members. If you'd like to support my work, that's the Cryptid Huntress over on Patreon. And I have a shop that's called War Woman Goods, if you'd like to support me there on Etsy. Okay, well, let's get to our show. Okay, because I don't want to waste any time. I'm going to be talking today, and Dennis as well. We're going to talk about one of my favorite witches. Okay. And it's also the scariest because I do feel like I have potentially come into contact with her in the woods before. Okay. Up in the Appalachian Mountains, where my team and I do research, up in North Georgia, in North Carolina, and in Tennessee. Okay. So I'm going to give a little rundown of who Spearfinger is, and then we're going to introduce Dennis to the show. Spearfinger is the legendary shape-shifting witch of the Cherokee legend who roams the woods of the Appalachian Mountains between Tennessee, Georgia, and North Carolina. She takes the form of an old lady hunting the woods for children to feed her insatiable appetite for her favorite delicacy, liver. She extracts that from her victims with her long, sharp, obsidian-like finger. Today, we're going to be talking about my possible encounters with Spearfinger and other Cherokee legends along the Appalachian Mountains with Dennis Carroll. Dennis has over 40 years of experience in the field of the paranormal. He studied, researched, and investigated many aspects pertaining to the paranormal and the supernatural with many personal paranormal experiences. He's a researcher and investigator of the occult and supernatural. He's a well-known UFO and cryptid researcher and has a fantastic YouTube channel. It's called Hunting the Shadows on YouTube, where he has a really amazing seminar set up for us tonight on the Nephilim. So please help me welcome to the show my co-host, Dr. Dennis Carroll. Hey, Dennis.
Good afternoon. Glad to be here. It's always a pleasure.
So much. Oh, thank you so much, Dennis, for being here. It's always fun when you're here because we have the best conversations. And today is no different. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite and the scariest legends of Cherokee folklore.
Oh, yeah. Dennis, that's my favorite thing, Jessica. Folklore. I love folklore. I've loved it for many, many years. And the Cherokee are treasure trove. of folklore. They have some very interesting stories. And Spearfinger is definitely one of them. You know, the Wicked Witch of the West has nothing on Spearfinger. Okay, she is a bad gal, definitely.
She's a bad little old lady. Okay, and I did mention that she's a shapeshifter, and she has terrified the woods of North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and all along the Smoky Mountains and the Appalachian Mountains down here in the South for a long, long time. And I think that I might have had an encounter with Spearfinger before. I know my team has had potentially had some dealings with what we believe to be Spearfinger. And it could be not only in a 3D sense, but in a spiritual sense, which sounds kind of odd. I know, but
and in the description of Spearfinger, Spearfinger is very interesting. She is described, of course, as a lady, a woman, dressed in animal skins. She has long, long black hair, and her skin is supposedly made of stone-like material. You can't pierce her skin, and she can actually supposedly use that spear finger, which is usually on her right hand, and it's the index finger. It's very long and like an obsidian stone. She can pierce you, take out your liver, and devour it.
And that's her favorite thing to do. So this is what Spearfinger, kind of what she looks like. It's very interesting that she's holding a heart in her hand as well, Dennis. So
definitely.
Okay. It's very odd, right? And I think one of the first times I had ever heard of Spearfinger was when I went camping with some of my friends who are elders of the Cherokee up in Cherokee, North Carolina, okay, of the Cherokee tribe up there. And it was Will. Okay, Will is one of the artists up there. He's an artist. He was actually in some of the Disney movie where he played a chief of, I forgot, I don't know what movie it was, but he's like a very well-known elder of the Cherokee up there. And it's been a while since I've talked to all of them. So, and it's Chief David up there. They took me to the top of this mountain where we camped out for an entire weekend. And Chief David Webb, by the way, David took me and my cousin Jesse, who makes all the Bigfoot art, that I've talked about before. Jesse and his fiance, and we went up there, and it was beautiful. We watched the sky ships over Cashers all weekend. If you guys are familiar with the sky ships over Cashers, I have some pictures from. This is looking out over the mountains from where my tent was set up. Okay, so if you can imagine how beautiful this was up there.
Oh, yeah.
But it was also a little bit terrifying, because during that weekend, throughout the night, I was seeing a shadow running around the camp. Okay, a shadow. It went in circles around our camp both nights that we were out there. And Will, this is Will. He's an artist. He does a lot of folk art. His favorite thing to make are totem poles and booger masks. And if you'll notice on this totem pole, this was at the Cherokee Cultural Arts Center up there, where they put on they put some of the artwork from the local artists on display. And he had made this totem. If you look in the background, that is called the Stone Coat Witch on the top. And I believe that is who we refer to as Spearfinger. And if you'll notice, it's a woman, a witch, with her hands around the neck of a child. Okay, now this is what I know. It sounds terrible, but it's almost like this is one of a big story in Cherokee. To me, when I first heard it, I thought it was just to scare the kids, to keep them out of the woods. Okay, so they don't wander too far by themselves, because a lot of these tales are cautionary tales for kids and for adults to stay out of trouble. And but when we were up on that mountain, not only did we have Bigfoot activity up there, Dennis, we had the sky ships, which are UFOs that were floating above us all weekend over the mountain. There were 4 of them. But we had a witch. They told me that was a witch that was running in circles around us, because we were on some sacred land. Okay, on top of, they said it was a vortex where we were staying. And we also had what Will said was a skinwalker tried to approach us at one point that night, one of those nights, because he out of the blue, we started feeling this really uneasy feeling. And Will started screaming in an old, like ancient dialect of Cherokee that he said no one speaks anymore, to tell the skinwalker to go away. I know I'm not supposed to say that word, okay, but that's what it was. Something to do with some dark magic and something that was following him around, he said. So it was an interesting weekend, Dennis. Very interesting time out there. But the witch that was running around the camp was said to be the Stonecoat Witch. Okay. Now, the Stonecoat, Dennis, that when they say Stonecoat, they're referring to the fact that she cannot be penetrated. Her skin, when you shoot an arrow at her or shoot at her, it bounces right off. Are you familiar with that, Dennis?
Yeah, that's very interesting. You know, we said before, there's a lot of magic in the mountains, especially in the Appalachian Mountains, especially seems like it's a very spiritual area. And when you think about Spearfinger, she is an evil spirit entity, you might say, in that respect. But there are other things related, I think, to Spearfinger as well, like the Deer Woman. I don't know if you're familiar with the legend of the Deer Woman, but she can actually appear as a beautiful young maiden in the forest, lure men into the forest and kill them. She's just as bad. The deer lady is just about as bad as Spearfinger in that respect. Spearfinger is more monstrous in one way, the way the Cherokee describe her, and That's the deer woman there, deer lady. And here's a telltale sign about her: she looks just like a human woman, except for her feet, which are the feet of a deer. She can sometimes appear as a deer, and all this also feeds into the legend of the white deer, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The white deer is very interesting in that respect too, because it symbolizes sort of a good spirit thing going on, where some of this other stuff is bad mojo type stuff. Um, they the Cherokee warned their children around the campfires, do not go out alone at night. Do not go, even in daytime, it was not allowed for their children to go out alone, or especially for young maidens to go out alone. Then you had the other things to worry about, the Cherokee devil, for one thing. To this day, a lot of people, and I've actually been looking for the Cherokee devil, went out looking. It's actually the name for the Cherokee Bigfoot, by the way. Um, his name is Sukalu, and he is the red glowing eyes. And here's the interesting thing about uh, the Sukalu is that he, with those eyes, if you look in his eyes, he can take over your mind and actually take over your motive, your motivation. He can actually psychically attack you in that respect. And I find that very interesting. You never hear of too many Bigfoots that can do that. Um, so he is interesting, and that's basically why he is called a Cherokee devil. He has all the attributes of a demonic entity in that respect. And I've told a lot of people, and we've said on some of these shows, Jessica, if you ever encounter anything like Spearfinger or Salukalu or whatever, do not look into their eyes. That is where their power lies. And if you look into their eyes, they can control you and get you exactly where they want you. The deer lady is very much like that. She can supposedly also, if you look in her eyes, get you to do whatever she wants to do. We're talking about some very bad medicine here, as they say.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a whole story about Sukalu as well, and I actually had done a remote viewing show on Judaculla Rock at some point, and we did talk about Sukalu. Some people call him Judaculla as well, and there's a big rock in North Carolina. It's not too far from Casher. It's kind of the area where I was hanging out during that weekend, but I was taken there, and I have a picture. Okay, and I want y'all to know that this is not. You're not supposed to do this. And today there's a fence around this, but back then there wasn't. And I sat on Judaculla Rock. I know that's terrible. You're not supposed to sit on this thing at this point. But this is an old ancient rock that has, I mean, it's very debatable as to what is written on this. There's petroglyphs. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of years old. I mean, it could be like a million years
Oh,
old. I don't even know. It's really old. Okay. History is debatable at this point in my,
that's very
timelines.
ancient.
It
Very
is.
ancient stuff. And the Cherokees go back a long ways. And there are many legends that the Cherokee talk about. My favorite, the Moon Eyed people. They said
Mhm.
that the Moon Eyed people, who are described as short, white people with beards, and they supposedly were here when the Cherokee first arrived, and they had like a war with them and drove them underground. And to this day, supposedly that is where the Moon-eyed people are still living underground. You have some very interesting stuff going on here. This is a I call it a very high strangeness area.
Mhm.
Definitely. So I'm not surprised that what happened with you happened there, because I've had a lot of interesting things happen to me in those locations too. You're dealing with very ancient power, like a very ancient magic, you might want to call it. Whenever you run into that, you run into elemental type spiritual beings. That sort of like the wild card in the deck. You don't know what's going to happen with that situation.
Yes, you never know. Always keep your head on a swivel at places like this. Okay, so you mentioned the what is it? The devil. Oh my gosh, what is it? The Cherokee devil. Okay,
Uh-huh.
the Cherokee devil, and if that is Judaculla, it's really interesting. I actually, if you go back and watch that show that I did on the Judaculla rock, some people consider Judaculla or Sugalu to be a giant human, but the majority of stories that come out of this are him being a Sasquatch or a wild man type of a being or a creature, I guess you could say, a being. And he actually even had a female human girlfriend. Okay. And the story behind him goes that he was guarding Judaculla Rock there, that petroglyph that I showed you guys where I'm sitting on it. And he would, anytime in that area that the Cherokee hunters would, what he considered to be trespassing, they would trespass onto that piece of property right there, he would attack them. And to this day, okay, so this is all in like a pasture, farmland. And if you go about 50 yards from where Judaculla Rock is, there's something that what Chief David called Judaculla's
Right.
throne right there. And it's a bunch of gigantic rocks. It's actually from a good distance away, but those are some big rocks where they say that that's where Judaculla would sit and watch for, to keep watch, I guess, over the property right there.
Yeah, well, those were sort of what we call cairns, or they're land markers, area
Mhm.
markers. A lot they marked these places and trails and all that, and especially they venerated their places of the dead. Wherever their people were buried or the ceremonies for burial took place. That was a very sacred area, so they would definitely put up markers to warn you of you were encountering places like that. Here's the interesting thing about when we were talking about the Cherokee Devil. He is described by the Cherokee as a giant, and I'm going to be talking about giants tonight on my seminar. But this leads into the fact that these things were not small; they were very big, very tall. They were considered giants by the Cherokees, this tribe of people. And here's another interesting thing, Jessica, and we'll talk some more about that. The Nanahi are actually spirit beings. The Cherokee believe these were good spirit beings that guarded and protected them. They were light beings, sort of like what we would call our angels. The Nanahi protected the Cherokee people. So if you ran into these things like the Cherokee Devil, Spearfinger, or the Dear Lady or whatever, you would call upon the Nanahi to protect you from these evil spirits. So those are the good spirits of the Cherokee.
Are the Nunahite, are those the same as the Cherokee Little People, Dennis?
Yeah, those are sort of the Nanahi were described as sort of light beings. Really, I'm thinking
Okay.
about how they said they talked about them. They were sort of very spiritual, so they didn't take on a form as we would call a form.
Mhm.
but they were there and they could do
Oh,
good, and they could also punish you if you did bad. Though, if you disrespected someone or you beat someone or whatever the situation was, you could also have the Nanahi come down on you that way as well. So there was sort of very moral, listicle type spiritual beings.
wow. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Okay. I have some information on um Spearfinger. Okay, so I kind of want to backtrack a little bit. Let's talk about Spearfinger a little bit more because not only have I had that potentially one encounter with Spearfinger on top of that mountain, I think we've had about two more, as a matter of fact, out in the field. And so I wanted to go over the story behind Spearfinger today for the audience. Okay, so I mentioned that she's covered in like a stone-like skin. Okay, that no arrows can penetrate. She's a shapeshifter, and she really likes to take the form of a little old lady. Okay, because what better way to fool your opponent and your enemies or your victims, in her case, than to look like a helpless old little lady walking through the woods? But as soon as she traps her victims, she turns into her true form, Dennis. And some say it looks something like these creatures right here.
Yeah. If you look at those beings, they look more like what we traditionally used to call trolls or mountain trolls. They were made almost as like stone material, which is maybe very related to this to Spearfinger because that's how she is described in that sense of the word. But it means that they are almost, I'm not going to say, well, immortal, but they are very impenetrable. You can't attack
Mhm.
them with spears or with arrows or clubs. You're really at a disadvantage over something like that. To me, that makes an interesting thing. And you hit upon the deer lady earlier, and the deer. We've talked about not real deer, not deer as we call them. These are another part of the Cherokee legends that some of these beings can appear not only as a beautiful maiden or an old lady, as you said, an elderly lady, but they can also appear as animals. And one of those is, of course, the deer. The deer was very important and essential to the Cherokee tribes. That was part of well, they lived off of it. They used it. It's very much like the buffalo to the Plains Indians was the white-tailed deer to the Cherokee. So the Cherokee venerated that. And if these evil spirits would take on the form of a deer and do weird stuff like walk on two legs that a normal deer would not do, they knew they were dealing with some kind of bad, evil spirit because it was taking what they associated as a good part of nature, the deer, and turning it into something else, something bad. That's the way evil spirits supposedly work in that respect.
Well, you know what that reminds me of? The Native American skinwalker.
Hmm.
Okay, it kind of reminds me of that, and that was something that I was almost scared out of my skin that night. That something crawled up in behind our tents in our base camp on top of that mountain, and Mr. Will started screaming out, like started yelling at it in this old ancient dialect of Cherokee. Okay, and I knew that there was something
Yeah.
wrong, but we couldn't. And could he have been trying to scare us? Absolutely. Okay, but I don't think he was. I think he genuinely sensed, because we all sensed that there was something
Well,
creeping up behind us.
the Cherokee had an equivalent for the skinwalker. They had also equivalent sort of the Wendigo as well. Have you
Mhm.
ever heard of the Raven Mocker?
No.
Well, the Raven Mocker is a very bad guy, very bad dude. It can take on, it makes the noise and cry of a raven or crow. But this spirit actually comes and takes the spirit out of a person when they die. They capture, suppose, that spirit. And in some legends of the Cherokee, they are the passageway from this life to the next life. The Raven Mocker takes you over when you pass. But he can also be an omen, a very bad omen of death and destruction, something very bad that's going to happen. If you hear the Raven Mocker or see him, and he supposedly looks sometimes like with the body of a man but the head of a raven. Um, if you hear him, it's very much like the Irish banshee. You know, it's a portent of death. Another thing that the Cherokee do not like is the sound of owls at night. That is also a portent of death and associated with the raven mocker.
Wow. I've not heard that before. I have, in fact, though, heard Sasquatch imitating owls at night. Okay, so that's something else. That puts another level to it, because that can be kind of creepy, actually. Now, Andrew, hey Andrew, okay, he says, are there any specific conditions in which this creature would try to approach you? Now, if you're talking about Spearfinger, I was just about to address that. Okay, so let me get into that. So the story goes with Spearfinger that she had reigned like terror throughout the lands, all through the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina. Because we've had our experiences with Spearfinger, which we believe was Spearfinger, in Georgia. So it's not just Tennessee and North Carolina. But it got so bad that the Cherokee medicine men called a council together with neighboring tribes to see how they could stop her reign of terror. They heard that she was feeding. Okay, so feeding, that sounds horrible, but she was feeding close by, so they decided to trap her. Okay, so in order to do that, they dug a huge pit around their village and they covered it with leaves and brush so that she would fall in and they could unalive her. Okay, is what they were going to plan to do. So they knew that she loved the fall season the best. Who doesn't, right? And so they went. The Cherokee were known to go hunt for chestnuts out in the forest, Dennis. And so when they would do that, they do like a controlled burn. And for people who aren't sure, like don't know what a controlled burn is, it's where they just would set a fire and it would burn out all the brush and the grass and the sticks, all the dead leaves and things like that, so that they could see the chestnuts better. Okay, so it was easier to spot the chestnuts. So they knew that would probably call her in because she would know that they were there in the woods looking for chestnuts. The little kids would probably be out there. And what does she love to eat the most? Children's livers. Okay, the children. They're young and tender, apparently, which is terrible. But they set the fire, and all the warriors sat and wait, looking for her, waiting for her to show up. And instead of some demonic entity showing up, they saw a little old lady approaching. Well, they knew it was Spearfinger, so they started shooting at her, but their arrows were bouncing off. And that's when she took her demonic form. Okay, she shapeshifted, and I say demonic, but it was like the terrible form of that, like the picture that I showed. They were shooting at her. The arrows were not going through, and they threw rocks. Nothing was hit. Everything was bouncing off of her. That's why they call her the Stonecoat Witch. But as they're doing this just barrage of, throwing things and trying to hit her, a little tiny bird, I think it was like a chickadee, okay, or a tufted titmouse, potentially. It landed on her shoulder, and it was almost like showing the warriors, like, shoot here, shoot right here.
Right.
And so they shot her there, but nothing happened. And then another bird landed on her finger. And they noticed that it had they saw her long spear that was made out of like an obsidian looking material. And as she held her hand up, they saw there was a beating black heart inside of her hand, Dennis.
Yeah, her heart is in her hand. She has a hand in her heart. Yeah.
That's right. So she had, let me take this down. She had her heart in her hand. And so the bird had landed there to kind of show them this is where you should shoot. And so they were able to shoot her heart in her hand, and that is what finally did her in, according to the legend. So another really scary thing about this is that she would shapeshift into this old lady form, and she would trick the children in the village. And she would be very grandmotherly and stroke their hair and make it where they would, she would pretty much lull them to sleep. And when they fell asleep, she would take her sharp razor pointed finger and stick it in their back and pull out their liver and eat it.
Yeah. Well, that is the way to dispatch Spearfinger. You kill her by shooting her in her hand, where the
Mhm.
spear is. I think it was always the right hand or something like that. That was one way you dispatched her. That was the only way because, like I said, the rest of her makeup was like stone. Arrows,
Mhm.
spears would bounce off. Knives had no effect. That was the one way to get her. Very much like the legend of the dragon, Jessica. There's always one scale on the dragon that was a weak. That was where you aimed. That was what you aimed for to take him down. And that is the same thing with Spearfinger. She has a weakness. Other thing, supposedly the Cherokee believed in, and the Cherokee believed very strongly in the fact that you respected the land. You usually were not going to run into or have a problem with Spearfinger, as if you were sort of pure of heart and you did things right and you respected your elders and you respected the land. You usually didn't have that problem unless you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, like I think you might have been in that situation. But uh, you could always be in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's the way things go in this world. But anyway, um, another way to keep these evil spirits away from you was to carry a red-tailed hawk feather. The red-tailed hawk was sort of the spirit animal of the Cherokee. They venerated it. And if you had that feather usually around you or on you somewhere on your close proximity, you would keep these evil spirits away from you. It was sort of a protective, like the cross would be against vampires. Uh, that was their thing. And of course, you had to be in tune with the Nanahi. That was another good thing. The good spirits of the land and of the ancestors. Um, but there were a lot of different things that you could run into. There were a lot of different things, like the uh, Ukatina. The Ukatina is a terrible looking thing. It is described as a gigantic snake with wings, fins on it, and it has a diamond in its forehead. This thing is a terrible, terrible creature to run into. It looks like your typical dragon, only it has a diamond in its forehead. And it is said that if only the greatest of warriors could take this thing down and retrieve that diamond. And if they could do that, and only one, according to Cherokee legend, only one warrior ever did that, the greatest one of all. Can't think of his name right off. He actually got the diamond off of it. And the diamond can be used. And the Cherokee supposedly have it hidden away, this diamond. They won't let anyone see it. It's very, very, very sacred to them. But they say this diamond can heal the people and the land. That's a very interesting legend about the Ukatima.
Dennis, you know what that looks like to me? A dragon.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we've been talking about
And
dragons a good bit lately, and dragons being real. Gerald and Jane are in the chat today. Hey, Gerald and Jane, with Midwest Night Watchers and Chiro Sounds. We did it. We've done shows on dragons before and talked about them.
mhm,
I I mean that would suggest if some of these mythological creatures that we hear out of legends and lore from the Appalachian Mountains,
mhm,
what if these things were actually real? You know, I like I said, I've had my encounters potentially with Spearfinger, okay, and I've definitely had encounters with Bigfoots, Sasquatch, and I don't know about the Cherokee Devil, but I mean, there's probably a whole bunch of Cherokee Devils. But that would.
Snallygaster. The
Mhm,
snallygaster is another one. Oh, very much like the Ukanina. Uh,
mhm.
in the description of it. And here's an interesting parallel too, Jessica. European dragons were originally described as being like gigantic snakes. You have to wonder if somewhere back in time that mankind encountered gigantic snakes. It's not that far fetched that these things could not have existed. Look at anacondas and the boas and all that. They're in Florida right now, for that matter of fact. You have some very big snakes out there. So it's not that far fetched that you could run into gigantic type snakes.
Oh yeah, there are multiple stories of giant snakes all over the United States throughout the centuries. So Maureen, thank you so much for that super sticker. I appreciate you. Um, thank you so much. Yeah, we have tales of all sorts of different types of serpents and lake snakes and lake monsters and things that look like the Loch Ness monster. But yeah, we do have we do have a lot. I'm not going to say a lot of dragons here. I haven't heard a whole lot of stories of dragons in the United States. But what if some of these giant snakes that have been talked about throughout history that are mythological creatures, what if those were actually dragons here in the US? Food for
Well,
thought.
we do know without a doubt back in prehistoric times everything was big. I mean, you had big spiders. You had, and the Cherokees believe have a legend about giant spiders too. By the way, um, everything was big. You had mosquitoes the size of eagles. You had some wild stuff going on. So, what if some of this stuff, made it through the years down to actually meeting with mankind or the different tribes that might have run into these things? Yeah, that's not that far fetched to me that this might be the basis for a lot of their legends. That some of these things were huge, just like the Sasquatch they talk about being described as a race of giants. And then, of course, further out west, you do have the legend of giants, the red haired giants that they ran into out in the Midwest. The Indians out there actually had wars with them and actually destroyed them. So and here's another interesting facet. You have the Cherokees and you have the Moon Eyed people, and you have the same description of these same kind of people with the Apaches, which were 1,000 miles away from each other. But you had some very interesting transference going on here. You have to wonder, if some of this was not based on absolute fact, you
Hmm.
know?
I think it was. Okay, there was another incident that I had out in the woods when it comes to Spearfinger, and Abbott has that's the interesting thing. I think I've seen that picture. It's talking about there's a picture of a 100-foot snake from a plane
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
in the Amazon. Now the Amazon has some just seriously gigantic creatures in it. Okay, because it's just like the ocean. It's like so vast. Things are able to grow to be gigantic
Yeah.
out there. But okay, so another incident that I had out in the woods with Spearfinger was when we were out. I was out with my team, and we're able to pick up psychically on a lot of stuff out there. That's why the whole team is trained in remote viewing. Okay, it's partly because so that we can tune in psychically to whatever's going on out there to potentially communicate with whatever's out there, and to also not let your mind wander and to so, I mean, you can totally go crazy out there sometimes, y'all. It gets really scary out in the woods. And so, Dennis, I was out there one night with my team, and we had broken off into smaller teams. And I was with one team where we don't use flashlights, no headlamps, no nothing out there. And we had wandered very, very deep into the North Georgia mountains, and all we could hear was a tapping. Okay, I had just learned a story about Spearfinger not too long before this, but we kept hearing tapping on a tree, like tap 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 tap, and it was so loud it was ringing out through the woods. But I just kept hearing tap tap tap, and psychically, what I was seeing was Spearfinger tapping her Spearfinger on a tree. Okay, now was that my mind running away from me? Maybe. Okay, maybe 100% it could have been, but at the same time, it was in my mind. It was just that connection out there. So yeah, I decided I was not wanting to go back to that area at all for the rest of that weekend. But yeah, at night I was like, why are we not going to turn our flashlights on, y'all? Okay. But
But
yeah.
that is a definite modus operandi of these things, Jessica. She was probably trying to lead you away off the trail and get you lost. That's the way these malevolent things work. Just like the traditional will o' the wisp or the deer lady we talked about earlier. That was her job to lure you off the trail and do away with you. They weren't taking you out for a party. Definitely not. They're not going to lead you off to any good place for a good end, you might say, to that situation. So it's and I have to wonder about where you were at the time, if it was not old, sacred land or some of that,
Mhm.
that maybe you had, stumbled upon this area. It seemed like a hot area to me for a definite situation like that. There had to be a reason for it to be like that. So it could have been a sacred area or something similar to that with very high magical properties to it.
Mhm. Yes, Millie has a good question. Do I wear night vision goggles? We all have FLIR devices and night vision cameras and things like that. I don't go around wearing like a helmet like you see the military using with the night vision. Hey, but I will start a fund if anybody wants to donate to a night vision goggle fund. That would be awesome. But
I
no,
have been
I don't have those. I wish I did.
I've been in situations, I don't know about you, but I have been in situations where the light of headlamps seemed to be sucked up by the darkness. It is like your light did not go very far. Have you ever run into an area like that? It's very creepy, where light just does not seem to want to penetrate to an extent. It's
Yeah.
weird.
One thing that I would not want to take out into the woods where we go. I mean, I think it'd be kind of cool in some aspects, but in other aspects it'd be terrifying. And those are those cyan dye goggles that I've talked about before on the show. That's the interdimensional viewing technology, Dennis. That they say that they were used in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and the soldiers were seeing into another dimension. They were seeing what they thought was hell because there were demons flying around.
I think a lot of these things, Jessica, can attack you psychically and get you to see what they want you to see or think what they want you to think. Very much like the deer lady or like, the Cherokee devil we talked about earlier with the red glowing eyes. Do not look in their eyes because once you have that psychic bond with these things, then it can get you under control in that respect. So I have to wonder if a lot of these things can get you to hear and see things that they want you to, for certain purposes of their
Yes.
own. I think that you can be what you would call traditionally under some kind of psychic attack, like, a spiritual attack in that respect.
Yeah, and I'd mentioned that the remote viewing helps us to keep our minds right, and helps you to keep your head on straight when you're out in really scary situations like I've been in out in the woods. And because when it comes down to it, I always say this, the head of my team taught me early, all roads lead back to ET in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of extraterrestrial stuff going on, a phenomenon going on out in the woods, along with all of these Cherokee legends and lore, along with the Sasquatch, along with the UFOs, everything, portals. A lot of it has to do with ET activity. And when I started doing this research, I started having firsthand close contact with ETs that were showing up in my bedroom at night. Okay, so um, there's something that not only the ETs can do, but there's something that probably some of these other entities, like you're saying, can do, and that is put screen memories in our minds. Okay, and make us project something into our mind that's not actually what we're seeing, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. So that's why we work out our spiritual muscles, okay, our psychic muscles, to try to prevent that from happening. It's like having the showdown with the aliens, out there and stuff. If you're able to have a strong mind and be switched on psychically, you're less likely to be manipulated by whatever's going on out there. Okay, I guess that's kind of the bottom line in my book. But yeah, but it
Yeah,
doesn't mean that they're not going to scare you in some way.
I've said that a lot of times, Jessica, especially when people going on investigations or when you think you're going out, just like you and your team were out there in the woods or whatever. Wherever you go and all that stuff, you need to get in your mind. You need to get your mindset right. You need to get yourself prepared spiritually, for going into an investigation and coming out of one as well. That's just as important, as coming out. Maybe more important than going in sometimes. Is coming out of it. You've got to get yourself spiritually ready for it. And mind wise, you've got to have that mindset. That's very, very important, without a doubt.
It is. And I have the head of one of my teams in the chat. My buddy Trey Hudson is in here today. Hey Trey. We have a lot of interesting things going on. We go out and do the Meadow Project. Okay, we work on the Meadow Project together, along with other projects. We're out there researching all of the woods, all the mountains. But yeah, we've had some screen memory situations, and as Trey will tell you, Dennis, a lot of times when we're out in the woods, it's just as important to pay attention to. Let's just say when you go to sleep, pay attention to your dreams when you're out in the field doing this research and you're around these cryptids, you're around things like potentially Spearfinger. We had an incident out at the meadow one weekend where one of our teammates, we all went to sleep one night after we'd had some pretty major activity going on. We had done a CE5 protocol out in the meadow. We went to sleep, and maybe we didn't think as much happened to us as probably did, because there could have been some screen memories involved. Who knows? But one of our teammates went to sleep and had a dream about, I believe, Trey can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Nox Arcana. Okay, was this name that came up in his dream, and so he had never even heard that name before. But Trey and the team did some research on it, and it turns out it was like the goddess of the night, or goddess of the moon, or something like that. I forgot, Trey. You'll have to tell me. Nox Magby. That was it. And it was almost like the goddess of the little people of the night is what this thing was, or something. You'll have to tell me, Trey, in the comments over here, so I can remember. But you have to pay attention to all this stuff, because it's going to lead you to the answers you're looking for when you pay attention to things like your dreams and stuff like that, especially out in the field.
And another aspect we got to think about, Jessica, these things know you are looking for them. Okay? They know you're looking for them. So you definitely have their attention, for good or bad. So don't forget that. You've already got their attention. And when you get something's attention, you can usually get actions behind it. So you have to be very, very careful, definitely. And understand that what you're dealing with, maybe not you might be looking for it may be also looking for you. The hunter becomes the hunted in certain senses like that. That's a very interesting aspect of that. I've actually had things happen to me out in the forest that are very freaky in that respect. It's almost as if that intelligence is in play against you, in just little ways, nothing real big, sometimes little ways that they can affect you. So you're dealing with an intelligence without any doubt, whatever level it may be on. And I think sometimes it's on a higher level than our intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. We're able to manifest. Okay, you can manifest experiences. Ask me how I know. And I'm going to put, let's see, which one can I do? Okay, how about the ETs in my home? Okay, I've had at least 2 encounters with ETs. Okay, up close and personal. And I was not dreaming. Okay, it wasn't a dream. It was real. Okay, I saw it. It was very real to me. And I had just been told to start studying alien abductions. Okay, so this is something that had never even been in front of me before. I had just started learning, going out and doing Bigfoot field research with my team. We had some incidences in the Appalachian Mountains that involved low-flying UFOs, Sasquatch, and potentially some other cryptid activity. And so I guess it was kind of agreed upon that we could have had potentially an abduction experience out there while we were searching for Sasquatch. And so I started studying that. And so I was open to it. It was almost like I think that I was on that frequency. And that's why I'm saying, like, when it comes to Spearfinger and some of these local legends and lore, especially in the Appalachian Mountains, once you get on that frequency, once you become aware of it, it might become more real. Like maybe it is there on some sort of a frequency. You just got to attune to it. Because when I started reading on alien abductions with books like The Threat, Communion, Whitley Strieber's books, okay, I started having experiences with ETs in my home. Okay, I never had that before. Not that I knew of it. Now, maybe I had, but I just was not aware of it because I wasn't on that frequency. Who knows? It's an interesting thought, though.
And here's the interesting thing, Jessica. A lot of people talk about manifestation Okay. Manifestation is not creation. Okay. You're not actually creating something here. Manifestation, actually, in my book, is a thought energy that you're sending out, and you're thinking about that thing, and that thing is already there. It picks up on this and it uses that thought energy to manifest itself in that respect. That's what you
Mhm.
run into a lot, I think, especially in places like the forest and what you're talking about and all that. Some of these things may be using you to manifest themselves with in that respect.
Well, our bodies are like batteries to a lot of these.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, think of it in terms of energy vampires. When you go into a room, if you go to, I always use the term, I always use the example of Walmart. Okay, you go into Walmart. I mean, you can go in anywhere. You can go into your job, and there's certain people, or you can go to a family dinner. Okay, and there's
Uh-huh.
certain people who you get around them, and you feel like your energy is completely wiped out when you get done interacting with these people. With these people, it's your energy just feels drained. Well, that's because your body is like a battery. You're a life force, and there's some people that'll just take all that energy and use it for themselves, and you'll notice that they walk
Yep.
away skipping and jumping and feeling good, and you're left there needing a nap. Okay, because
Yeah,
those people have taken your energy from you.
absolutely. I agree with that. And I've seen instances with that happening, and it's like that old saying, "Oh, what I greatly feared has happened to me." The thought process put that in action. That's what happened. You're doing some kind of action there, especially. I think more or less along on sort of a spiritual level, you know, in that
Mhm.
respect. So you're definitely going to have some stuff happen without a doubt.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, John has a comment here. Okay, so there was a mention earlier of owls as portents and linked with Sasquatch. They're also a common alien encounter screen memory. Absolutely. Yes, because you had mentioned, did you mention the owl people or something like that? I can't remember if you mentioned that earlier. Um, but
Well, I
owls
have to
owls have
wonder.
been linked with Sasquatch.
I've have to wonder, and I've done a lot of research on abduction and all that, alien abduction, all that. I have to wonder how much of this are implanted memories put there for reasons to deceive us. You got to wonder about that as well. But the thing about owls, owls are very spiritual type creatures in that respect. You have many legends. Look at Harry Potter and the owls that deliver messages and all this stuff. Owls go way back. There's an old Cherokee legend that if you hear an owl for 7 nights in a row, then you are going to die. Okay, that's it.
Oh,
So owls were considered a very bad potent, a very harbinger of death in that respect. And they were sort of a link between us and the spirit world in that respect.
oh my
So
gosh.
owls show up. Owls show up in a lot of stuff, and it's not. And here's the weird thing about owls: it's not just the Cherokee, it's not just the American natives. It is worldwide in many cultures. The owl. Look at the patron spirit animal of Athena, the goddess of wisdom, was the owl. And there's supposedly an owl hidden on a dollar bill. I have to show you that sometime. Anyway, there's a lot of symbolic stuff connected with the owls, just like the ravens, the raven mocker we talked about earlier, and the eagles and the hawks. They are flying animals, birds of prey. They're considered almost spiritual in that respect. Very interesting stuff.
Okay, I just had a thought. I came across this picture. Okay, so Dennis, being the cryptid huntress, people send me weird stuff. Okay, super weird stuff. And I came across this picture in my phone. Yes, it was just yesterday, and it was screenshots from a video from being out in the woods, and this woman woke up hearing noises in her tent. And so she opened up her tent and she took her camera out and was filming. Just did a quick sweep of the surrounding area and thought, well, maybe there's a Bigfoot, or maybe I'll get it on camera. And then she zipped her tent up and went back to sleep. The next morning, she got up and she was looking at that camera footage and the video footage, and there was a gigantic, what looked like, it looked like a naked man to me, but it also looked like an owl, like a gigantic humanoid owl in the fork of the tree. I'll get that picture. I'll see if I can find it. Okay, I think it's in my phone because I just saw it, and I thought, man, that'd make for a great remote viewing target. Okay, but there's also these like gigantic owls, right? Have you heard of these giant owls that look? I mean, I guess it could look like a human late at night. Nonetheless, it was creepy. Okay, no matter if it was a naked man or an owl. I don't know.
Oh yeah, there's the very famous story about the Owl Man in England, which I think it's the man in England. It was in a church, supposedly seen by several people. It was sort of like our equivalent to Mothman. And if circumstances are right in the dark, it would not be that hard to misconstrue Hawkman and an Owlman, okay? Because they look very much alike in my book. Owls don't have much of a neck, by the way. They look a lot like a moth if you look at them in that respect. So you have to wonder if there's not some misconstruing stuff going on with that. But anyway, there's a lot of stories of owl men supposedly being seen. There's a very famous one that was in Georgia where these people encountered one along a back road somewhere, I think in Georgia. Actually, um, a head showed up in their headlights of a truck, and they had collaboration on it. I think somebody was behind them that seen the same thing, and this thing was huge. I mean, we're not talking about that little bird in the middle of the road. We're talking about something very, very big, very unusual. And for my own self, I have had some very strange interaction with owls during several investigations that I've had. When there should not have been owls there were. And one was almost like I remember coming out of the house one night. It was after a very demonic case. I come out and I hear something, and I look up, and sitting on the very top of the roof of this house, the biggest owl I have ever seen. He was huge, big owl, and and he was like looking at me, and I took that as being a sign maybe of something spiritual going on in that respect. I've had some very freaky encounters with owls over the years. So I have to wonder if there's not a definite spiritual connection with some of that stuff.
There's got to be. A lot of people say that when they'll be out in the woods at night or driving down the road. My cousin Jesse, who's really into doing the Bigfoot art, who made the gigantic muscadine Bigfoot in front of Expedition Bigfoot in Cherry Log, Georgia, the Bigfoot Museum. Okay, so Jesse and his mom were driving. I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story. He and his mom were driving home late one night. They lived on a way deep in the back roads of the county that we grew up in, and they were driving home down their long driveway in the woods one night, and they said that there were two big white owls in the tree. These white owls are not native to this part of Georgia that I know of, but two big owls. I think it was like a mama and a baby, a big one and a small one, because I think he's painted them before in artwork. But it was just really odd. And see, and Jesse is much like me and his family. We've had a lot of strange encounters our entire lives with otherworldly beings, let's just say. And so to me, I think we kind of decided that was probably a screen memory of potentially even an abduction experience. And so that's kind of the connection that a lot of people make, especially to white owls being seen late at night.
Here's another thing, Jessica. Very much like Spearfinger, you have Lechusa. You ever heard of Lechusa? The owl witch. The owl witch, she is a witch woman that can take the form of a gigantic owl, and she loves to eat young children. Lechusa, very interesting legend, very much like Spearfinger in that respect. She's cannibalistic and a witch, and the only way that you can destroy her, supposedly to shoot her, with rock salt, blessed rock salt, to get rid of her.
Hey, I have the perfect weapon. I have a bug assault gun.
There you go. That will take care of it.
Everybody needs a bug assault gun. Thank you, Jeff Townsend. I don't know if he's watching today. Jeff gifted my son with the bug assault, man. And let me tell you, that is the most entertaining thing. And yeah, especially in Georgia when we have gnats and stuff. Don't let your kids shoot it in your house, though. My entire house was covered in salt okay, for a while, where he was trying to shoot little bugs on my bathroom mirror and stuff. You know, we live out in the country, y'all. So,
I
okay.
always, I have a box full of 12 gauge shotgun shells that are full of blessed rock salt. Okay, just in case.
Well, I need to start getting the rock salt blessed. Now, can we bless the salt, or
Yeah,
do we have to take it to like a priest? Where do we get this rock salt blessed, Dennis?
yeah. Well, rock salt is, basically the salt of the earth. It's real salt, like sea salt, which is the only things I use in blessing and cleansing ceremonies. The table salt's usually not real stuff, but the real deal is rock salt and sea salt, definitely.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, here's another thing. We're not going to get on this topic today, but maybe in the future. I've heard that Himalayan rock salt, like Himalayan rocks, like the lamps that we all have. A lot of us have those pink lamps. I have a big white one too. They say that is like the fat, or I think it's like fat out of the Titans. Okay, like it may not be what we think it is. It might actually be a body part of a giant, a titan from a long time ago. But like I said, that's a whole other topic for a whole other show. We're gonna go there one day. Y'all just wait. We're going there. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Himalayan salt's supposed to have magical properties to it. Matter of fact, I have one of those lamps. It's supposed to be a calming, spiritual cleansing type of a thing about it. Himalayan salt is very interesting. There again, you're dealing with the true salt of the earth and not man-made components, chemical stuff.
Yes, 100%. I like Moon at Noon's comment. Make your own holy water. Just boil the hell out of it. Oh my gosh, that's fun. That's
That's
funny.
that's an oxymoron or something, I guess. But anyway, that would be one way.
That's so
But
funny.
there is a formula. There is a formula for true holy water. I'll have to go over that someday. But there is, and I've had people ask me, "Can I drink it?" I said, "No, no, no. That's not a good idea to do that. It's for topical use only. Okay, don't drink it. Uh,
Oh my
it's not
gosh.
good for that. But real holy water has oil, blessed oil, salt, and like rosemary or something in it. I don't know if it would kill you, but I don't think it would sit good on your stomach.
No. Okay, well, we have another question from John. Have I ever been done a hypnotic regression around what I believe to be screen memories? I have done one before a long time ago, and but no, I have not done any lately, and I've had a lot of activity since then. So, um, when it's time, I will. And actually, Barry Littleton and I were just talking about that this past week. So he actually does hypnotic regressions for a living. So it's shocking that I have not done that yet with him. So we'll probably do that one day, and I may or may not make a report with you guys on that.
There's
Okay,
been
I think it would be worthy.
a lot of research done on hypnosis regression.
Mhm.
It's very interesting. I've heard a lot of tapes on it. I've never actually done it myself, but I've seen it done. But here's another thing about that, and that's what I say: when something happens to you, it's very important that you write every bit of it down immediately. Don't let it go down in your memory. It's very important that you make a record of it because the human mind is funny that way. We tend to forget little important things as time goes
Mhm.
on. So it's very, very important that, and I've told this to a lot of people, if anything happens to you, whatever it may be, write everything, what you were feeling, what if the sun was shining, be as specific as possible. So because you can lose a lot of that to memory over time, and you don't want to do that.
Let's and that's why when we're out in the field doing our field research, each person on my team has a notepad. Now Bob Grumpy, my buddy Bob, gave all of us little notepads to write down the date, the time, any little thing that we're experiencing when we're out there doing our research. We write it all down, and I have a big notebook that I've kept all of my papers in. I will write a book one day. I really will. Okay, because I've already got my book. I got volumes of books written just from all the research that we've done. Because it's important to write that down so you don't forget anything. Because that's where these, even with the screen memories and things, can come in. It's your mind is a very interesting thing. Okay. You can start having false memories. You can remember things differently, but if you write it down right when it happens, you can't forget that. You can't
Yeah,
forget
and
it. You can't forget it the wrong way.
they used to do that on ships. You know, you had a
Mhm.
logbook. You have flight logs. Even when you fly, you need to have everything written down or recorded. If you don't want to write, at least record it with a recorder. Okay, if you need to do it, but it must be taken down. It's very, very essential because you can forget things. The mind just does that to us, to all of us, eventually, especially as time passes. But you know what? You may find, a whole host of stuff may hinge on one little thing you forgot. You know, so that's why it's so important to record it all. Definitely.
It is. It is. And I'm going to try to remember to post that picture of that owl looking being in that tree. I think it's important. I think we should definitely look into that. And you guys can give me your idea of what you think it is. And hey, Drewski, what's up? Y'all go check out Cryptid Warfare on YouTube and all over social media podcasts. He just did a fantastic show with Zook yesterday that they posted. It's about field researchers versus armchair researchers, and it's actually really informative. So you guys go check that out, please. Please do. Now, the name of that owl witch, that's I forgot that it's Lechuza. Lechuza, is that the same? It
Lashuza.
sounds
Yeah.
it sounds kind of like what that thing could have been in that tree that I saw. Not that I saw personally, that I saw in that video, that I'm going to try to remember to put out for you guys today after the show's over. It could have been that. It could have been that. You just imagine, a lot of people when they go camping, they don't think about how they have one little piece of thin material separating from them when they're sleeping in their tent from things like Sasquatch and these owl witches and all this stuff. So I'm just saying, just be prepared, y'all, if you're going camping and stuff. I don't want to scare you. I want to encourage all of you to go camping, to get out in the woods. Just be aware of your surroundings. Okay. That's actually, I'm not gonna lie. That's why I whenever I take my son camping, we sleep in the back of my truck with the doors locked. Okay.
Yeah.
In some of these places.
True.
Yeah.
I've
So
said that a lot of, I've said that a lot of times, Jessica. When you go out in the woods, it's not like walking into your living room. You don't know what to expect out in the forest. You could run into anything. So we always expect the unexpected. You won't be disappointed.
that's right. That's right. Well, this has been such a fantastic conversation today, Dennis. Thank you so much for all of your insight on this. And I'm going to be tuning into your channel tonight. Tell the audience what you've got going on tonight.
Okay, well, tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Hunting the Shadows YouTube channel, I'm going to be doing a 2-hour seminar on the Nephilim, Children of the Fallen. We're going to cover some very interesting ground here. That's going to go back into prehistoric times unto how it relates in our modern world today. So that's Nephilim, Children of the Fallen. You don't want to miss this. This is some very, very important information and some insight on some stuff. I think you're going to hear some things you've never heard before, without a doubt. So that'll be tonight at 8 o'clock, 2-hour seminar. We'll be taking questions at the end. And so get your questions ready. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Hunting the Shadows podcast channel and YouTube channel. And also we have Paranormal Point of View on Friday nights at 8 o'clock. And so we have some interesting stuff on that coming up as well. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to be talking this Friday night on Inhuman Underground Dwellers, a very interesting topic. So that should be interesting too. So don't forget, that's tonight though at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for the Nephilim, Children of the Fallen.
Well, I'm going to be there. I know you guys are going to be there. I love your seminars whenever you talk. I'm all ears. I love being there. And also, if you'd like more information on Dennis, you can also go to his website. That's denniswcarroll.com. Okay, so please show your support, y'all. Y'all show up tonight and hang out with me in the chat tonight. Dennis, I can't wait. It's always a wonderful time when you're here. Is there any final thoughts on the Cherokee legends that we talked about today? Any final thoughts, Dennis?
Well, I just say keep your red-tailed hawk feather handy, just in case. And if you're gonna aim for the hand. That's where her heart is. Her heart's in hand.
Yeah.
So if you run into Spearfinger, best thing to do is try to avoid running into Spearfinger altogether, completely. But if you do, whatever you do, don't look in her eyes and all that stuff. So the Cherokee, I'm gonna tell you what. The one thing that I like about the Cherokee people and their folklore, they're very highly spiritual people, without a doubt.
Yes. Yes. And you guys put on your full armor of God every day as well. Wear your stone coat, especially when you go to Walmart. Okay. I love it. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for the super sticker today. And you guys, please come back and see me tomorrow night. I have been working some remote viewing targets. Gosh, I've been remote viewing my booty off lately this week. And so I've got a couple of targets I've done for Barry. I don't know what they are yet, but I can tell you they are really interesting. So we'll be setting that show up probably tonight. And so you guys come see me tomorrow night at 8 p.m. here at the Cryptid Huntress channel. Also, come see Dennis tonight at 8 p.m. on his channel, Hunting the Shadows. And then, of course, I'll be back this weekend on Sunday at Spaced Out Radio. You guys have a wonderful day. Dennis, have a great show tonight. And I will see you guys later on. Y'all stay safe out there. Bye. Bye, Dennis.